Russia has shifted most of the focus of its war to eastern Ukraine, after pulling back its forces from near the capital Kyiv. The battle for Ukraine's old industrial heartland known as Donbas is likely to decide the fate of the Russian invasion. What would Vladimir Putin need before he could claim success, after a campaign beset by failure? Russian forces now control large swathes of the south, having triggered a humanitarian catastrophe due to their long siege of the port city of Mariupol. But Ukraine's president has vowed the military will fight for every meter of our land, and some of their best-trained forces are already posted in the east because of an 8-year war with Russian-backed separatists. What is Ukraine's Donbas? When President Putin talks of Donbas, he is referring to Ukraine's old coal and steel-producing area. What he really means is the entirety of two big eastern regions, Luhansk and Donetsk, which run from outside Mariupol in the south all the way to the northern border. His proxy forces seized more than a third of the area after Russia annexed Crimea in 2014. Donbas is predominantly Russian-speaking, and Russia has repeatedly spoken of liberating the rest too. These areas may be broadly Russian-speaking, but they are no longer pro-Russian. Mariupol was one of the most pro-Russian cities in Ukraine, and to level it is beyond my comprehension, says defense specialist Konrad Muzyka, head of Rakon Consulting. Ukraine's leader, Volodymyr Zelensky, declared on April 18 that Russian forces had begun the battle for Donbas, for which they have long prepared. However, they are far from subduing the entire area, and even if he were to be able to claim victory, it would be a very large territory to control. Why Putin wants to control Donbas? Just before he launched the war, President Putin recognized all of Luhansk and Donetsk as independent of Ukraine, not just the statelets created by Moscow-backed proxies in the war that began in 2014. He has repeatedly made the unfounded accusation that Ukraine has carried out genocide in the east. The conflict there has claimed more than 14,000 lives since 2014, but 3/4 of those were combatants, and the 420 kilometers line of contact didn't change significantly after 2015. But it was not until Russia's military invasion failed around Kyiv that it diverted its attention to achieving the main goal, the liberation of Donbas. Russia's likely next step would be to annex Donbas and other adjacent areas, exactly as President Putin did with Crimea after a discredited referendum in 2014. Russia's puppet leader in Luhansk has already spoken of having a referendum in the near future, and some reports suggest votes are planned in both Donetsk and Luhansk in mid-May. Unlike Crimea, recently captured areas remain a war zone, and the idea of holding any sham vote would be absurd. What is Putin's strategy? Ukraine's military believes he wants full control not just of Donbas, but also of the southern region of Kherson, to the north and west of Crimea, and part of Zaporizhia. That would give him a land bridge along the south coast to the Russian border, and control of the water supply to Crimea. In Kherson, Russia is already trying to replace the Ukrainian currency with its own ruble, and may try to hold a vote on creating another proxy pseudo-republic there. One Russian general, Rustem Minikayev, has even said the aim is to extend control across the Black Sea coast beyond Odessa, but that seems little more than an aspiration for now. Much of Donetsk and key areas of Luhansk are still in Ukrainian hands, so Russian forces are trying to encircle Ukraine's army in the east, moving in from the north, east and south. This is a big territory to control, and I think we shouldn't underestimate the geographical complexities of this, says Tracy German, professor in conflict and security at King's College London. Ukrainian forces have held the second city of Kharkiv south of the Russian border, but Russia does have control of the strategic town of Izium further south down the main motorway heading into the separatist-controlled east. If you look at what they're doing around Izium, it's following the main lines of the highways, and that would make sense, given that they're moving most of their equipment by road and rail, says Professor German. The towns now in Russian sights have already experienced years of war since Russian-backed separatists first seized large parts of Donbas. The next big target down the M03 road is Slavyansk, a city of 125,000 people that was seized by Russian-backed forces in 2014 before being recaptured. Capturing Kramatorsk, just to the south, is also a big objective. The US-based Institute for the Study of War, ISW, says if Ukraine holds on to Slavyansk, Russia's campaign to seize both regions will likely fail. Russian forces have attacked a succession of Ukrainian-controlled towns in Luhansk as they advance from the north and east. They have captured Kremenna to the northwest of Severodonetsk and are attacking Rubizn, Popasna, and Lysychansk. These towns are important because controlling them would enable Russia to drive west and link up with Russian forces pushing southeast of Izium, says the ISW. The Russians need to control the supply lines by road and block Ukrainian access to rail routes from the west. Rail is the most effective transport for Ukrainian troops and heavy weaponry, and it is the fastest route out for fleeing civilians. Controlling parts of the rail network would also enable Russian forces to move their troops and supplies. Regional Military Administration head Suri Haidai believes Russia's goal is to destroy everything blocking their way in order to achieve Vladimir Putin's target of reaching Luhansk's western regional borders. Marina Agafonova, 27, fled her family's home in Lysychansk, leaving her parents behind as Russian shells continued to fall. They attacked hospitals and residential buildings. There is no heating and no electricity. Civilians are being moved out ahead of the Russian advance. It's far more scary to remain and burn in your sleep from a Russian shell, warned Mr. Haidai. Train lines in and out of Donbas have been cut across Luhansk, and the only services remaining in Donetsk are going to Pokrovsk. As Ukrainians waited to flee Russia's bombardment on trains out of Kramatorsk in early April, a rocket attack killed 57 people. Can Ukraine's forces hold out? At the start of the war, the 10 brigades that made up Ukraine's Joint Forces operation in the east were regarded as the best equipped and best trained soldiers that Ukraine has. We don't really know the strength of Ukrainian forces now, said Sam Cranny-Evans of the Royal United Services Institute. He believes their numbers will have been boosted by volunteers. The main goal for the Ukrainians is to inflict as big losses on the Russian side as possible, and the Ukrainians are using asymmetric tactics to avoid big battles, says Konrad Muzyka. U.S. officials say Russia now has 93 battalion tactical groups operating in the east. They typically number 700 to 900 men, but the UK says Russia has been unable to turn numerical strength into decisive advantage. Despite their reinforcements, there is widespread skepticism that Russian forces will achieve any breakthrough fast. Russian forces have already sustained high losses after more than 2 months of conflict, and morale is thought to be low. Their units are made up of men enlisted from the local separatist areas, many under duress, as well as the broader Russian army.